Yeah, no, don't worry about the edits. Just run this one. They got us messed up. Run it. I'm Antwann Michael, and this is the breakdown. Listen, let's just jump right into it. Let them do it. Let them do it. And by the way, if my voice sounds a little bit off, that's because I've come down with something. Make sure you take your vitamins and different things of that sort. But I had to get out of the bed for this one. Let them do it. It is going around that, the Trump administration is doing something with segregation. Let's be very, very clear about something. At the initial outset of the civil rights movement, okay, the ask was not for integration. The ask was for desegregation, meaning that black folks wanted to be able to go into, I don't know, Macy's and just be able to get what they need and walk right out without being accosted. The initial ask was never for, oh, well, we want to go to your schools. We were just asking for equal resources for our schools, right? Let's be very, very clear about that, that the initial ask was never for integration, that the project of integration in and of itself was a result of the nation state, okay? No other book makes that perhaps more clear than Ready for Revolution by Stokely Carmichael, okay? And let's just go ahead and lean into this just for a little bit. And then we're going to get to some other points that is important. And he's talking about the March on Washington here, right? And he's talking about all the leaders of the movement, right? So this would be Bayard Rustin and other folks of that sort, MLK, etc., right? And what does he say? This is, by the way, you need to read chapter 15 in this text. Read chapter 15 in this text. But he says, finally, they agreed to scrap the idea of any direct action on the confrontation with the administration. So the movement leaders said, okay, cool. We're not going to confront the administration directly. What does he go on to say? He says it should be a giant rally in support of the administration's legislative program. In other words, the civil rights movement. So we see that the ask for desegregation, right, now turns over into integration toward the production of civil rights and expanding the nation state. Because one of the things that you have to be clear about is that when you're asking for rights, you are necessarily asking for the expansion of the nation state. But continuing on, he says, once the White House gave cautious, tentative approval, that was the turning point. Check it out. The very establishment that they had targeted, the fully deserved target of the demonstration, was now giving permission, question mark, this is in the text, and then only if we promise to be good. Then he goes on to say, from now on, everything would have to be approved by them, meaning the administration, or indirectly representatives of the White House. The program, the speakers, the route of the march, the slogans, the signs to be carried, and of course, even the speeches, what in fact black folks would be allowed to say, at least in our case, that was true. So he talks about how the moment of the March on Washington was co-opted toward this particular ideal of integration. And why were they moving toward integration? Get into this. This is on page 335 of the text. Stokely Carmichael says, inside the work area, there were government production teams, USIA, Voice of America, etc., posing the volunteers, interracially, of course, shooting miles of film, interviewing workers. Quote, what does this mean to you? Quote, why were you there? Quote, smile now, this is going to Russia and Africa. They said, you couldn't have a demonstration like this in Moscow or Havana. Now, could you? No kidding. More than one guy actually said that. So the actual idea, implementation, and development of this idea of integration, how it goes along with democracy, and how that in turn allows America to be seen as this great democratic force on the world stage, is what was the key objective. So in other words, the White House administration at that particular point in time took the social movement, the social movement organizing of black folks, right, and those who were in allyship with black folks at that particular point in time, and turned it into a commodified good for the production of the nation state, right? Let's be very clear about the civil rights movement. There were more people in the Universal Negro Improvement Association than there were that was along the civil rights movement with MLK. In other words, more people were on board with Marcus Garvey than were on board with King, because the way in which the civil rights movement articulated itself within the United States, it was also informed by class. This is why Ella Baker, not only by way of class, but also gender, this is why Ella Baker Baker comes to establish SNCC and breaks off from what King is doing with the SCLC, right? Most people were on board with the UNIA, the with Marcus Garvey, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, right? So some of your favorite people were a part of Marcus Garvey's movement. Who am I talking about? Rosa Parks was a Garveyite. Malcolm X and his parents were all Garveyites. Let's be very clear about something. Black folks represent over $1.7 trillion of the economy. This is an excellent opportunity for us to close ranks and do what we do. There is a reason why they intentionally took down Black Wall Streets, because they understood that the black dollar knows how to circulate, it has power, and it knows how to make things happen. This is exactly why Target is experiencing what it is experiencing. So when they say make America great again, here we go. When they say make America great again, this is what they're talking about. However, to white allies who may be listening, be very clear that when black dollars are taken out of circulation in larger markets, you fail. You fail. So be very careful about being hyped up on, oh, you know, I'm going to be able to have my own facilities back, etc., and be very mindful of how that will impact you. Black folks, this is not ours to fight. This is not ours to fight. And if you enrolled in Introduction to Critical Race Theory here on TikTok with me, and you took Introduction to Critical Race Theory, listen, this is where this becomes applicable, right? Remember, we talked about the inversion of law. And by the way, if you have not taken those courses, all the lectures and all the classes are available on my profile page. You just have to click on the playlist Tillman Talk UCRT. And what we're very clear about in this particular instance, how this becomes a pushback against DEI. Watch the legal moves here. Is that because law requires, as is, integration and different things of that sort. Now, with him rolling this back, what does this make a claim to? This makes a claim to say, hey, if I want to separate myself, that is my right to do. And by the law requiring me to not separate myself, that interrupts my property rights in whiteness. Check it. Check it. You got to catch this. You have to catch this. And this is how the inversion of law is operating, right? Now, what I just said is not going to make sense if you did not take the class. But nonetheless, again, all the lectures are available. So what is happening in this moment is that the administration is attempting to leverage DEI, right, or the pushback against DEI to really bring some things back into sharp relief in terms of, you know, segregated spaces, different things of that sort, by using the inversion of law and saying that requiring white folk to integrate with non-white folks is actually a disruption of their First Amendment rights. Catch it. You cannot miss it. But what I do want to put out there in this moment is that let's be very, very clear. Black folks were never asking for integration. Get into this text. Ready for Revolution by Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture. He makes it very, very clear how the movement became co-opted through liberal approaches, right? And progressive approaches as well. And he even talks about how John Lewis's speech was also modified by way of King and others, which is also talked about in John Lewis's book that he wrote himself titled Walking with the Wind. Be clear about this. This is not our freak out moment, our panic moment, because integration was never our fight from the beginning. We were simply asking for desegregation. But let's be very clear. Black folks know how to do segregation very, very well. We know how to establish businesses. We know how to generate revenue. We know how to circulate that dollar because everything we need is within us. Okay? Let's be very clear about this. So let them do what they may. We will be okay. This is The Breakdown. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.